According to the National Center for Drug Abuse, over 165 million Americans ages 12 and up are currently abusing drugs or alcohol. Of those 165 million Americans, there is a mom, dad, sister, brother, wife, husband, son, daughter, or grandparent praying and pleading that they would stop. Addiction is a subject most people don't like to talk about and is kept behind closed doors. But the Finding Hope podcast will bring light to the subject and give families that are living in shame, guilt, hopelessness, fear, worry, and anger tools and education to find strength, peace, happiness, joy, and hope. Hello, I'm Amy LaRue, Finding Hope Coordinator for Hope is Alive Ministries and your host for this Finding Hope podcast. At Hope is Alive, our mission is to radically change the lives of drug addicts, alcoholics, and those who love them. We do this through our intentional next-level sober living homes and faith-based support groups for the loved ones of addicts called Finding Hope. Thank you for joining us today. Just a friendly reminder, our 2026 Redeemed Retreats are now open, and we will be in Colorado Springs July 10th through the 12th and Lake Junaluska September 11th through the 13th. So be sure to register today and learn more at FHretreat.com. We also have a Hope After Loss retreat coming up in September, and you can learn more at halretreat.com, HAL retreat.com. But I'm also excited about our third annual Run for Hope coming up just around the corner. And you can register and learn more at runforhoperace.com. This race is a time to honor and remember those we have lost to the impact of addiction, while also helping break the stigma surrounding it. Join us in bringing hope, awareness, and community together. But today, we have a pretty packed podcast scheduled, right, yes. Darcy? We're going to be talking about triggers and PTSD today. But first, how are you doing?
I'm doing good, other than it feels like winter.
It does. It's May and it feels cold here. But end of the school year, we're trying to get all the end of the year things done with our kids, all that. So survival for my children.
Yes. I told you this morning that teachers are not the only ones that are ready for school to be over. It's parents too.
So it's parents, it's teachers, it's the students, all the above.
Yes.
But so we're here. We are, May. Let's get this. Can't believe we're already here.
I know. Yeah.
So, but we are going to be talking about triggers and PTSD.
Yeah.
And so I just want to give a quick little disclaimer, just to know, like, this episode might be hard to listen to as we talk through about trauma and addiction and real life experiences. Yeah. So just be aware of that as you listen. And if you need to pause it or come back to it when you feel like you're in a better place mentally, please do so.
Yeah. Absolutely.
But it's important that we talk about this.
Oh, yes.
Because I feel like so many times I felt like, why I feel crazy. Mm-hmm. Like, why did that make me feel this way?
Yeah.
Why did that date, for example, there's a certain February 23rd for me is a date that always triggers me. Mm-hmm. Whether my husband, like, he's about to celebrate 6 years sobriety in June, this year, it was a good year, like on February 23rd. There's some years it still is hard for me.
Yeah.
It's also my niece's birthday. So it's a date that I always am aware of because it's, I send that happy birthday. Mm-hmm. And so, but we have to remember, like, we need to be able to acknowledge it. We need to be able to talk about it so that we can have these healings. So I can get through those dates, those triggers in a healthy way and not just shove them down and pretend like they're not there.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
How have you been impacted by PTSD and triggers?
Well, just growing up, I had a mom who struggled with addiction my whole life, and just the things that she allowed in our house that children shouldn't go through, and then going through the same things with my ex-husband. It took me back to things I didn't heal from as a child. And it could be him leaving and not coming back, or, things that I witnessed, like he could do a certain gesture, like not even knowing, and it would trigger me to, and it's something that happened when I was a kid. And then, watching my kids go through what I went through, those are just things that have triggered me back to things that I knew that I hadn't healed from, and taking me back there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think so many times we feel like, oh, this isn't for us. PTSD is, you think about it with the military, which is so true. Like, I'm not neglecting that, but it's also for anyone that's gone through trauma.
Yes.
Any type of trauma, right? I think COVID is everybody, is a PTSD for people, no matter what happened through it with you. But that is something that we all walked through that was very traumatic, not knowing all of the things that came along with that. And so we're going to be walking through this. And so as you're listening, if something comes to mind, like seriously, please pause it, stop the podcast. And I would encourage you to journal about it.
Absolutely.
Pray about it, give it to the Lord. And then you can come back later and finish this podcast.
Yes. Yeah.
And so PTSD, the simple definition of it is a response to a life-threatening or deeply distressing events. And we know, loving someone that struggles with substances, there's a lot of distressing events that happen, and a lot of trauma that can come alongside of that. A stat that I recently found, it says 1 in 3 people who experience severe trauma develop PTSD.
Wow. I don't think I've ever heard that before.
Yeah. And so, I'm really surprised it's not everyone, but 1 in 3 people develop PTSD. And so we have to remember, like, there's different levels to it too. And we're not going to go, like, we're not therapists here. I want to throw that out. We're just doing, probably just hitting the surface with this. There's a lot more research. If you're wanting to know more, I would encourage you to do your own research, talk to your own therapist about this. So I just want to put that disclaimer out there too. So there's firsthand trauma, right? Give an example of what a firsthand trauma might be.
So like overdosing, watching someone overdose or being the person that overdoses, a car accident, car trouble, anything like that. If it continues to happen or you hear the sounds, like that can be triggering for you.
Absolutely. Experiencing it firsthand. So you were there, you saw it happen, you were a part of the event.
Yes.
So like you're saying, maybe witness someone overdosing, witness a car accident, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And then there's long-term exposure, which I don't think people have really thought about this as PTSD, but it's so true. It's that living in that chaos that we live in.
Oh, absolutely.
And, we talk about, like, we get comfortable with the chaos. We don't know, but we don't like it. We're uncomfortable, but we're comfortable. How do I get out of this chaos?
Yes.
And so this type of PTSD is like, you're just been exposed to it and you're almost lived in this whole chaos, and like, how do I get out of it?
And it almost feels normal until you realize that it's not normal.
Absolutely. And I hear that another support group I used to go to when my husband first saw recovery is people thought it was normal growing up. And that might have been your experience, how they grew up in an alcoholic home. They thought everybody grew up like that. They didn't realize it wasn't normal.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
And then we have indirect trauma, and might be called secondhand PTSD. And so can you tell us what that looks like or what that might be about?
So I believe it's like hearing it all the time. Like, even if my kids never experienced anything with their dad, if they heard about my trauma growing up, I feel like they could carry that, and then they're going to live in that heightened, that might happen to me.
Yeah.
And so it's not like necessarily they lived it, but they heard enough about it growing up, and about my situation that they're living in that fear of it happening. And so just things that I've explained to them, and then if they hear a sound or if they see something, they're going to think, it's going to happen to me.
Yeah. And I have a quick example of this, not necessarily with my husband, but my daughter and I a year ago experienced this. We were at a cheer competition and getting ready to go for her to go compete and everything, doing her hair and makeup, all the things. And all of a sudden, all these sirens started going, and it was thought to be an active shooter. And so we heard all the sirens. I kept reading probably shouldn't have, should have stayed off social media, but kept reading all the stories, hearing the accounts for some of our athletes that were already there, what it felt like running out. And that was indirect in a sense. And then the next day when we got back, or that Monday, I was driving into work, and all of a sudden I see these flashing lights by my daughter's school, and it completely triggered me.
Oh, absolutely.
And thinking, oh my gosh, what's going on at her school?
Yeah.
And so that's an example of indirect or secondhand, and so it's like your kids hearing your stories and all of that. So hearing those stories on kind of repeat, or, maybe reading about them and all of that.
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So, Darcy, what causes PTSD?
Okay, so PTSD can be caused by several things. It's walking through different types of traumatic events in your life or somebody else's life, and those could be such as abuse, accidents, illness, loss, and addiction. But we also need to be reminded of trauma isn't just one big event. Like, I think a lot of people think, oh, it's one big thing that happened.
And I love that you said that, because it is. We think, oh, this didn't happen to me, but it's not. It's all those, we call them big T's and little T's.
Yes.
So big trauma, there's big traumas and there's little T's. This is Amy's take on it. Just take it with what you want.
Yes.
But I feel like all the little T's can add up to the big T's.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So I said, agree. That's an Amy.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of people too are like, oh, I don't have that big traumatic thing, so I don't have any trauma. But like you said, those little T's can add up to it feeling like it's a big trauma, even though you don't think. So a lot of people who don't have that big trauma don't understand why they're getting triggered, why they have this PTSD. But that's why I think it's a good reminder to explain doesn't always have to be a big event. It can be
cumulative. Yes. I got you, girl.
I know. I'm like, why can't I say that word? I would say repeated.
You're good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it is. It's those things that add up. And I think sometimes what gets missed, right, is addiction creates ongoing trauma for us families. Whether they've been in addiction, they've been struggling for 6 months to 12 years, right? It's cumulative. It's ongoing trauma for the families. Even after, we've walked through that, maybe you've done a lot of healing through therapy and through Finding Hope, it's still there. And it's, you're going to get triggered one way or another. And it's because you've done that healing, you are able to walk through it in a healthier way.
Yes. Yeah. And my counselor pointed out something to me, because I would get triggered. I've been through in counseling for a number of years, and I was still getting triggered. And I thought, what's wrong with me? Why can't I get through that? And she told me, don't look at it as a setback or that you're not healed. That just means there's another layer that you need to heal from and walk through. Because I think a lot of times when we're in our own recovery, we think, well, I shouldn't be triggered by anything anymore. But just remember that, there's that continued layer of healing that you still need to work through.
Yeah. And seek that healing.
Yes.
Right? You got to recognize it. And then we have to take that step. You got to be willing to take it. I think too many times we're like, okay, I need to do it, but are you willing to actually work through it? And that's what you've been doing over the last 2 years, really working through all of this healing. And it's been beautiful watching you.
Oh, thank you.
So when we love someone that struggles, like we've said many times, we've walked through it, this PTSD. And we have to remember, because we say it all the time, addiction just doesn't impact the person. It impacts the direct person, whether it's the spouse, the parent, the child. It impacts everyone. It's a ripple effect. I was just talking to another Finding Hope person recently, and she was talking about she was walking through it with one of her son, and her younger child came up. It's like, I'm gonna make sure I don't do anything. Because they could see, we talked about that with family roles recently on the podcast too. Yeah. She could see the impact, that her parents had gone through so much. And so we have to remember it's impacting everyone.
Oh, yeah.
And
absolutely.
And it creates trauma cycles for everyone around them.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And sometimes they have something called complex PTSD, which includes that emotional flashbacks, right? And so it's like, you might might be when you're laying in bed, or like you hear a song or you read a Bible verse. There's a song actually at church that can trigger me. And I know people are like, well, you're at church. Why is this song triggering you? It's the breath in our lungs, right? Like that song.
Yes.
And I just remember always standing there worshiping next to my husband and hearing us singing that song. And like, here he is probably drunk at church, right? Like, and it's like, for some reason that song gets me, you know? And so that can sometimes make a emotional flashback to how we were, you know, how things were once.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's good.
And so, I think we have to just remember we also can experience physical and emotional trauma. So what are some of the physical traumas?
Physical traumas could be, seeing, I would say even like seeing things.
So witnessing something.
Yeah. Witnessing something. Even I know, I don't like the doors to slam at my house, just because every time my ex-husband would get mad and go after, he would slam the door, and it'd mean he was leaving. So even when my kids slam the door, that can be, if like, I feel like that's a physical one, because it's in like, I'm witnessing it. Seeing something on TV, watching a show that you would watch, like movies with my mom. My mom and I watched movies all the time, and old movies that we used to watch together will come on, and it will take me like that flashback of like being with her, watching those movies, things like that.
Yeah. And witnessing like the overdose, or maybe you've witnessed and saw your loved one get arrested.
Yes.
You know, and so again, those flashing lights, like it did with me, with my child, might trigger you.
Yeah.
Like, or you see a cop coming down the road, or, you know, all that. It might be witnessing like that homelessness.
Yes.
You know, and then, you know, actually just driving into work today, there's a gentleman I saw, and I say this all the time, like I just stopped and prayed for him.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like, you know, I just want to be like, get in my car and I'll take you to HIA right now.
Right.
You know?
I know.
So witnessing that homelessness and seeing others that are homeless can trigger you in that state.
Yes.
You know, I have someone in my Finding Hope group here locally, and she was helping raise her grandchild. And then all of a sudden, her daughter won't let them do anything with the grandchild. Aww. You know, and so losing those grandchildren or those relationships can be a form of physical trauma. Like all of a sudden they're gone. And so there's a lot of things that I don't think people realize that are physical.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and I think it's, again, like I said, once you recognize it, you've got to name it too. You know, it's like, okay, why am I feeling this way? Oh, and you know, and it's like too many times we want to shut our brain off and not remember what happened in the past. And it's like, no, like God's bringing it back. Like I need to heal, like you're saying, heal from it. I need to open up this wound and figure out I need to heal from it, because if I don't, the next time it's just going to get worse and worse, and it's going to come out on somebody else. Right.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times as Christians, we think about, a lot of times we don't want to deal with it because it reminds us and makes us feel like God wasn't there with us, and maybe God forgot us in those moments. Yeah. And so through counseling for myself, my counselors had me go back to those moments when I've been triggered or when I feel, you know, the PTSD, and ask God where he was at in those moments. So I can be reminded he was right there with me. Because I think we have that fear of, I'm going to be reminded of how I felt in those moments. Well, we need to go back and remember what God says about it, and that he was there with you, and you're not alone, and you are loved, because those traumatic events can make you feel like you aren't those things.
Yeah, absolutely. That's such a great reminder. So we also have like emotional trauma that comes along with it, right? It might be that neglect, emotional neglect, whether that's from a parent, whether that's from a spouse that's struggling with addiction. What else are some emotional?
I would just say, like, you're not good enough. Like, I know, why am I not good enough for my mom to get sober? Why was I not good enough for my ex-husband to stay sober? Yeah. And those are just, you know, lies that the enemy wants to keep us trapped in. Like I said, again, alone. You know, we're not alone, you know, but we feel like we're alone. I just think those are some of the emotional ones.
And I think so many times, I mean, this just goes back to abuse.
Yes.
Like physical abuse, you can see. Emotional abuse, you can't see.
Right.
And so it's those things, like maybe it's being manipulated, You can't physically see that, but you're being manipulated. There's no communication, let me rephrase that, healthy communication going on, right? It's, those can be types of traumas too, emotional traumas. Witnessing personality changes with our loved ones, I think that's, we say it all the time, like and you hear it on the phone too. That's not who they are. We're like, we know that's the addiction talking in them, and they're still there. They're just covered in that addiction right now.
Yeah.
And so we have to remember, like, no matter if it's physical or emotional, they both matter.
Yes.
And they're both just as painful as another. And I think too many times people push emotional aside because it's like, well, it's not showing, it's not, they're not hitting me or whatever it might be, but it's just as hard.
It's just as damaging on the body, because what it does, like we carry, like there's this book called The Body Keeps Score. And it doesn't matter what kind of trauma it is, your body's carrying it no matter what it is, if it's physical, spiritual, or emotional. Yeah,
and you've shared this at some of our retreats, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words women never heard, or that phrase, we used to say it in schools, but no, all the time. Words have power.
Yes, they absolutely do.
So what we need to do is through all this, through this PTSD, through these triggers, the first step, I think, like we've mentioned, is we've got to remember that these triggers are reminders of activated trauma responses. And some of these, the late night phone calls, you talked about the movies, the door slammings. One thing for me with my husband is his truck being home, because through his addiction, he works in construction. So sometimes he does work, like just has to come home, get tools, or do whatever he needs to does computer work sometimes from home. And so, but through his addiction, he would always be home before me. When I'd walk in, I wouldn't know what I was walking into. Would he be passed out in the bed? Would he be passed out in his chair? What am I going to get? Right. And so thinking through, that was a trigger. And so now he's still like, well, hey, I'm coming home. Like, I'm going to work from home, because it is a trigger to me, walking through that with him.
Yeah.
And so it's maybe no response to text or calls can be some triggers. Hearing, one of our board members recently talked about hearing story, her daughter overdose. She survived, but she had an overdose. And then talking to someone who did lose one, that was really triggering to her because it was so raw and right there. And so hearing about someone else's relapse too.
Yes.
Sometimes like, oh, does that mean my loved one's going to relapse?
Right.
Not necessarily, but like, it's those type of things can be triggering.
Yeah.
I remember, I'm going to bring this up. I didn't talk to you about this. It's probably like a year ago. It wasn't this holiday, but I think it was the holiday before. You were in Hobby Lobby. I think you're getting something for work. I don't.
Yes.
And you texted me later. It's like, Amy, I was just triggered. So tell us about that.
Yeah. So it was my first holiday with the kids after my ex-husband and I had separated, and I didn't know what it was going to look like. And I walked into Hobby Lobby and they had already put all their Christmas things out. And I walked in and I was like, I don't even know where to go. Like, I don't even remember what I was going to go buy. I think it was something for our board meeting coming up, like little bags. And I know where stuff is in Hobby Lobby, but I completely froze and was like, where do I go to find what I need? I don't know. And every aisle I turned down had Christmas stuff. And I was, because I knew Christmas was going to look so different. And I just found what I needed, eventually got to my car, and I could have just started my car and drove away, but I just sat there and I allowed myself to feel what was triggering me, why I felt that way, and just cry. I don't know how long I cried, but I just cried. And I remember texting you and going, I did this, and I don't know how long I sat there, but I cried. And you just reminded me it's okay to cry.
Yeah. So you're able to identify it. And that's why I want people to realize, like, you were in Hobby Lobby, not even going, like,
right.
And so they can come out of nowhere, and we talk about that, like, yes, dates for me, different things. It might be, like I mentioned earlier, a song. And I hadn't really thought about that till, recently. It might be a smell. It might be a vacation, like you mentioned, a movie. So what I want people to hear and know, like, whatever it is, it's normal.
Yes.
Right? Like, you're not crazy. We want to make sure, why am I in Hobby Lobby crying? Because I'm here to get something for work, but I don't even know what I'm getting now. I don't know where to go. And so I could just walk around Hobby Lobby like a lost little puppy and figure it out. But no, you took the next step. Like, okay, I just need to reground. That's what I heard in that. Like, I need to reground. I'm going to go to my car and I'm going to allow myself to cry and to allow myself to grieve in that moment.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And to feel the feelings. And I think a lot of times we're afraid to go into places that we used to go to, and like you said, you don't even know when it's going to happen, but you can also see, like, that same year the kids and I had a vacation planned at the same place we always went as a family, and I thought I was going to be super triggered the whole entire time, but it was so healing. So don't be afraid to do things that you used to do.
That's good. Also,
because you're afraid of it bringing up triggers, because it also could be very healing too.
Yeah, that's so good. That's such a great reminder, not to just avoid.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, that's the word I was looking for.
And even if it is hard, like, being able to walk through that and heal through that, it's going to be good for you.
Absolutely.
At the end.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so PTSD can develop over time. And I mean, it's these flashbacks, it's the nightmares, right? But it takes a toll on us, on our health, right? It can
absolutely
stress, you lose sleep. And there's just so much research, like, why sleep is so good for you.
Yeah.
You might start to have heart issues. You might start to have the migraines. Your blood pressure might go up. All these different health things that come along with this is real. And so
absolutely.
making sure you're addressing those are like, why all of a sudden can I not sleep, or why all of a sudden is my heart racing all the time? And so being able to acknowledge that and be like, okay, take it to your doctor first of all, and then working through, like you're talking about that book, how it really does impact us. People lose hair, like their hair starts to thin. Stress makes your skin changes, all the different things that this can do.
Yeah.
So it's so important that we walk through this in a healing way.
Yes.
And to remember, like, okay, healing is possible. And like the steps like you're taking, coming to Finding Hope. We're not therapists at Finding Hope. I always want to say that. Like, we're not therapists, we're not counselors, but we have walked it.
Yes.
And we have tools that have helped us, that we can tell you what worked for us. We can't tell you what to do, but we can tell you what worked for us.
Yes.
Definitely getting a therapist.
Yes.
And don't be scared of the costs, guys. Like, I hear it all the time, like, oh, it's so expensive. It's too expensive. It is expensive. But in the long run, it will be so much worth your time. Yeah. And sometimes it's hard to find a good counselor.
Yes.
And I understand that, but once you find that, not to give up, once you find that counselor, you'll be so grateful you did that.
Yeah. And I don't know if some people know, but insurance can cover counseling costs too, where you just have to pay a copay. And so make sure you check with your insurance too, to make sure they can help.
Yeah. And not all therapists have that. And so sometimes they do have what they call a sliding scale. I'm sure therapists are so excited I'm telling them this, but a sliding scale where they will work with you based on your income. So, and you might just have to sacrifice something else for a while. It might be, you can't go shopping for a while. You might be, okay,
out your Starbucks.
Can't go out to eat,
Yeah.
My family, sometimes the month of January or February, I can't remember now, we have a no eating out policy, just to save money, and so it might be something like that.
Right.
And so what are some other things people can do?
Make sure you're doing like self-care. Like, self-care is important for me. And I do still get triggered, even though I've been walking this journey for a while, I do still get triggered. And so I know the things that I need to do for me. That's sometimes going for a run. Running is not just for physical health for me. It's mostly for my mental health. And so getting out and doing that, getting your hair done. Like, sometimes a girl just wants to feel pretty.
Yes.
And so do something for you, exercise, go outside and just breathe in the fresh air.
That's
like,
so good.
There's times the kids and I might be getting into it, and I'll just go outside and just stand on the sidewalk. And they're like, what are you doing, Mom? I'm like, just taking a deep breath, regrouping and breathing in the goodness of the Lord, and just reading your Bible, journaling, all those things can help when you feel like trigger or you're afraid. You want to try to avoid a trigger coming, just in prayer and just lean on the Lord.
One thing my counselor had me walk through once was starting to identify your body. Like what sensations, like in your mouth, your 5 senses in a sense, like what are your shoulders doing when you, for me, it was my anxiety. Like, what are your shoulders going through? What's my headaches are part of that. What are, is your eye, are you having eye twitching? Are you having a fist more? Are you clenching your mouth? Like, so noticing what physically are you doing? Sometimes you don't realize it until you start to acknowledge it. And so acknowledging those so that you can take the next steps to, like you said, go for that run, go pull out your journal. Sometimes here at work, I don't have a window, so it's nice to just get outside and walk around, take a 5-minute break and walk around your work, or go outside to the mailbox, whatever excuse you need to help yourself get regrounded. But again, you've got to work through it. You've got to peel these onions, these layers of the onions, whether you want to or not. Somebody's like getting convicted to hear this. Like, if you're tired of these triggers, if you're tired of living in this PTSD, like, seek help is what I would say. Like, you don't have to live like this. You don't have to live in fear of when it's going to be triggered. I was talking to somebody recently, and they're just so immersed in their loved one's addiction, and they're like, I don't know how to help them. And I mean, it was so, like, to the point where I could hear the breathing, like couldn't even catch her breath. And I was like, there's nothing I can tell you right now, but you've got to go seek help for yourself right now. Like, there's something you have to do. I told her just like that, go outside. You need to take a break, taking care of yourself, putting on the oxygen mouth, because you feel like you can't do that for yourself when you're so immersed. But you need to. Because all those other health things are going to come up.
I also think it's important, like, even when, if you know that you just walked through a traumatic event, whether it's a new one or it's a repeated one, seeing what you said earlier, name it, and allow yourself to feel. One of my kids recently went through a traumatic event, and they were like, I don't want to cry. I don't want to cry. And I said, do not stuff it. Allow yourself. So when they had a moment by themselves, they allowed themselves to cry and go through the emotions and all of that, instead of stuffing it. Because I think a lot of times we're like, no, we don't want to feel it. It's too hard. It's going to hurt too much. But don't stuff it. Like,
and it does hurt. We're not gonna lie, it hurts. But then the healing comes from that.
Yes.
There's
absolutely.
Good on the other side of that. The other side of the hurt, being able to feel it. It is gonna hurt. It's not gonna feel good. We don't want to feel like that.
Right.
But we also don't want to live the rest of our lives always like that either. So we can find that healing on the other side.
Absolutely.
Anything else you want to say before we wrap it up?
No, we could just talk about this forever.
I know. And like I said, we're just hitting the surface, guys. Like, there's so much more. And I'm going to say this again. If you are walking through it, please seek help. Please seek a counselor, someone that is trained in this. We can help you, guide you to counselors. There's great resources, especially here in Oklahoma. We have some great resources, but we want to make sure we help, get to a meeting, realize these triggers. You're not crazy with them. Right. When you share them in your group, that, oh my goodness, the door slamming triggered me, or seeing those sirens reminded me when he got arrested. Again, other people might think you're crazy. You might think you're crazy, but sharing those at our meetings to know you're not crazy.
Yes.
And so that's my challenge. Like, first of all, seek the help that you need.
Yes.
And then what are some of your triggers you're going through? What do you know are triggers? Also, you might have to communicate those triggers. Like my husband's truck, I had to communicate that because he doesn't know that his truck triggers me. Right. Well, now he does, but he didn't. And so I would get angry and mad, but like that, it's not his fault.
Right.
And so I had to communicate that. And so he now communicates. So you might even have to communicate the triggers to your loved one or to somebody, to your kids slamming the doors. Hey, this makes, and I'm sure you have, like, you've got to communicate. So what are your triggers? What support do you need with that?
Right.
And what's one step you can take today to your healing? Maybe writing down those triggers, and maybe that's your first step. That's all you need to do today.
Yeah.
And then praying through them and asking the Lord to help you get through those and to help heal you through those.
Yeah, that's good.
Anything else?
No, it's good.
Okay. So thank you guys so much for joining us this week. And you can learn more about Finding Hope at FindingHope.Today. But before you go, we would love for you to give us a 5-star review, share this on social media, and subscribe to this podcast so you don't miss our next hope-filled episode. Thanks again, Darcy, for joining us in this episode of Finding Hope. And remember, you are not alone. It's not your fault. There is hope.